it's a child. It's him as a baby on a stark white cover, and it just says "Ready to Die," which is so. I don't even think people realize how heavy metal that actually is. You know what I mean? How that's dark.
Priest versus Maiden.
Yeah, and then we'll just say welcome to the show, Bor. How are you? You're good?
I'm very good, thank you.
Yes. And
how are you, Tarjei?
I'm pretty good. I'm really good actually. I've done some house washing, so the whole house smells clean.
Very good.
Listening to some groovy music while doing the wooden floors.
What is the preferred songs or band while washing?
I'm really into the new Ghost album these days. I think it's amazing. And also I was listening to some friends of mine called Lion Eyes.
Yeah, I think I might have heard of those.
Yeah. So if anyone is wondering why we're talking English, this is our first English guest on the podcast. And welcome to you, Nate Bergman. How are you?
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be a part of the first English episode.
Yeah, cool. So this is a trend. This is when we really break it and make it big in the saturated podcast world.
Yeah,
maybe the two Norwegian guys talking about Priest and Maiden that's the one thing that's missing from the podcast world.
The podcast universe.
Podcast.
Yes. So thank you in advance, Nate.
Thanks for having me. This is I always love talking music, especially these two bands in particular. I'm a big fan of. So
cool. So Nate, first of all, I'm going to tell all our listeners that I've met Nate several times. I'm a big fan of a band called Clutch, and as we all are, I think. And Nate's band Lion Eyes has played support 2 or maybe 3 times, maybe more. So I've seen you a bunch of times with Clutch, and I've been so fortunate to meet both Clutch and Nate and the other guys in his band several times. So they're really friendly, cool guys. So I took a chance at inviting him to the podcast. So I think we want to hear more about your musical career in a little bit, but for all the thousands of new English listening fans to the podcast, we're just gonna tell you why we're doing this podcast. So I've known Bård for probably 20 years or something, Bård, 20, 25 something. And
yes.
Yeah. And me and Bård and some other friends of ours, friends that I've known for probably almost 50 years, including my little brother. We've been going out for, is it 15 years, more or less, to the Sweden Rock Festival. I don't know if you're familiar with the Sweden Rock Festival, Nathan, but
yeah, I've heard of it for sure. I mean,
yeah. So we've been Clutch have played there 2 times, but it's what we call it rock festival for an older male audience, dad rock maybe.
Dad rock.
Yeah. So we get all these bands like everything from like Skid Row to Queensryche to Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne, the classics like Foreigner. Yeah, a lot of those bands from the 70s and 80s, and a couple of new bands as well.
Yeah, I think probably this year there will be some bands that are pushing the 60-year anniversary thing.
Yeah, probably.
Wow, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know.
Yeah, it's like the Blue Oyster Cult. They've and Nazareth. They're frequently playing there. So we're a group of friends. So we rent a small cabin next to the festival because when there's not a festival, there's this like. People go there to the cabins because it's close to the sea, and we can go swimming in the morning and stuff like that. And we never ever argue. One year, it was 2017 or 2018. The headliners were Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, and Ozzy Osbourne on the 3 following days. And like the 16-year-old me would have died if he knew that the 50-year-old me was going to that festival. But what we discovered was that we started arguing, who is the better band? Is it our Judas Priest or Iron Maiden? So we never argue about anything with those guys, but it got kind of almost nasty there. We started researching a bit, and it's a thing, the Priest versus Maiden thing, because there's so much similarities between them. Even if Priest has been doing what they do 10 years longer, they became popular around the same time. They were like big in both were big in the 80s. Both lost their original singer and were less popular in the 90s, and then they had these big comebacks. And they are, if you think about heavy metal, they are two of the first bands that come to mind. So what we did was, we started this podcast, and we're trying to talk to a lot of people if they like Priest or Maiden best, and then also make them evaluate a small aspect of the bands. So we've had a guy who's a literature critic. He had some really interesting stuff to say about both the Priest and Maiden lyrics. We had a friend of ours who made a lot of the, I guess you're familiar with the Norwegian black metal bands.
Sure, of course.
Yeah. So she made the first Burzum album cover. That was her painting. She made also,
wow.
I think she did Enslaved logos and Immortal logos. And then we had the discussion, which band, Priest or Maiden, has the best logo. So we went into too much detail. We were thinking about, well, there was a change in the logo from Judas Priest from Stained Class to Killing Machine. So there was just one more, they got the small tags under
angle.
Yeah, small angles under the name. So it went from 5 to 6.
Okay.
So that was one of that's the kind of thing we talk about. But we also had singers and drummers and guitar players and cover illustrators and even a data journalist who did a lot of charts and stuff from a lot of different sources. So that's what we're trying to figure out. We start with, what does your heart tell you? Do you like Judas Priest or Iron Maiden in your heart? But then the next job is, which band has the better singer? That's what you've chosen to talk about. So the one is, well, if you have to choose just from your heart, what's the favorite band? And then later we'll talk about the singer, and you'll get to give 1 point to either one of those.
Oh Lord!
Yeah,
I'm already anxious.
There are no wrong answers. It's just guys talking about heavy metal.
Okay.
So yeah. So but can you just tell a little bit about your musical career? Because I don't think Lionize is it's not really well known in Norway, and yeah, I got to show you. I have to tell what I'm showing now. This is an album I bought from one of the gigs, and it's signed and everything from you and the guys in the band.
Amazing.
But also in the mail today, I got something really nice.
Wow!
This is
thank you so much.
This is the vinyl for your solo album.
Thank you.
So how does it feel? How does it feel sitting looking across the Atlantic Ocean and seeing your album in my hands?
It's really surreal. It's crazy. I mean, thank you so much for supporting it.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to kind of spend, 16, 17, 18 years with the same group of guys. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. It looks great.
It's for our listeners, it's half purple and half black.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's real nice.
It's pretty surreal. I spent so much time with Lionize, and it's funny because you say, we're not really well known in Norway. And that's part of the thing in terms of where I'm at. My perspective now is because I spent all that time. We spent all that time grinding and working and busting our asses and kind of playing all over the world. And we never quite hit the point where people really started to know us. A lot of bands loved us. A lot of your favorite bands loved us. And we had a very small and dedicated fan base, but not big enough to kind of spread the word. And it's really strange starting my solo career. And I'm just 2 years into it, really, just at the beginning of the pandemic. And it's already kind of moving so much faster than the past 18 years. So it's surreal to kind of see the little bit of success that we've had in the last 2 years getting this thing off the ground. And it frankly, it feels great. It feels great to just have my own voice,
Yeah, cool.
I know that sounds selfish and like I'm an asshole. And,
no,
I think it can come across that way, I think, to a lot of fans of Lionize, but I'm really fulfilled and really happy doing this new thing. And I think I'm really excited because I think I'll spend a bunch of time in Europe coming up pretty soon. And I don't think, I think we'll see more of those records over there.
Yeah, yeah.
Could I just ask, Nate, what do you think is the reason for these two, the career of Lionize compared to your new solo career, and the difference in how it has progressed?
I think the difference is, I think art in general, it either connects or it doesn't. I don't think you can predict why it's going to connect, and I don't think you can force it to connect. And I think art, from an artist perspective, you're trying to convey a vision. You're trying to express a vision or an emotion or this idea of your songs. And I think when you're in a band, there's two possibilities within this band and any band. Either the tension and the working together aspect of it creates something that attracts people and mesmerizes them and connects to a bigger audience, or it connects to some people, but the singular vision gets muddled, if that makes sense. It's like, for instance, I think you think about the Rolling Stones or the Beatles or, the first of the big bands. And you see that there are 4 distinct personalities, but something magic, Clutch, something really magical comes together. And even if there's tension or in the songwriting process, if it's like hard to put stuff together, I think the end result kind of speaks for itself. And I would imagine with Lionize that the 4 distinct personalities or the 3 distinct personalities never really came to a singular purpose. We explored a lot of different ideas together, and I think some of it tapped into something that people really liked, but I don't think it ever connected on such a level where people really understood everything that we were trying to do, because maybe we didn't understand it. And I think the difference is with my solo, with this album and my solo music, it's that it's just my idea and I'm presenting it unfiltered. I actually produced the record myself, so there's not a note choice or a chorus choice or songwriting choice on there that wasn't my singular vision. So I think not that my ideas are always better, just that when you listen to this music, there's no filter between what I hear in my head and what you're hearing. So so I think it might be easier for people to connect with that idea. I don't really know why it's connecting more, but it seems to be already working in a much quicker pace.
Yeah. And if I can add, I've been on your Patreon for a while, and during the pandemic, that was a joy to listen to the new songs, and you did a lot of acoustic live stuff. And I think the things you do just with you and your guitar, and you have your co-singers, backup singers.
Yeah. Co-singers.
Your co-singers. It was really cool, and also at a time where nobody could go much out. Like to have that those songs coming, and they're very much like straight from the heart, the way I hear them from you. So that was fun.
Thanks so much. And for Patreon, we kind of switched halfway through. Just this year, I decided that I was going to make it a live only archive. So we're trying to tape every live show that we do. And then for $5 or $10 a month, we'll upload all the shows to the archive. So then instead of kind of like, because it was at a point during the lockdown when I was writing and trying to get some of this new stuff flushed out and put together, but I feel like that was a really special time. And now that things are opening back up, it doesn't feel as special to do it like that. So I just switched it over. So now you can basically go back like you would with Iron Maiden or Judas Priest and try to find some of these old live shows. So we'll have everything starting this year just documented there.
Cool. So the next thing we usually talk about is how did you discover Priest and Iron Maiden in your, I guess, in your somewhat younger days? And we've mostly had Norwegian guests, so for us it's more like a relatable to listen to other people that's grown up in the same country. But and I don't think I told you this, but I lived in Connecticut till I was 6 years old.
Oh wow, okay.
So I was actually not so far from in the same
not
part.
far. You're about 5 hours away from DC. 4 hours.
Yeah,
4 hours from where I grew up in Maryland.
And I'm thinking about this picture that I've seen on online of you and Neil Fallon. Then how old are you guys in that picture?
Whew, I don't want to date Neil's age, but I think he was 16 or 17.
Yeah,
there, and I believe I was between 6 and 8.
Okay,
maybe 7 years old, between 6, 7, or 8. Cool. in that world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, a quick backstory there is that my dad owned a tiny seafood market, kind of not too dissimilar from like a Norwegian storefront with just fresh fish in it, and you kind of go in and pay by the pound.
Yeah.
And that was Neil's first real job, was working at the fish market. And my parents both worked, and my dad worked a lot. So I was in the seafood store all the time, just kind of with different people watching me in the store. And Neil was definitely one of my first babysitter kind of dudes. Yeah.
Cool. As I understand, the scene in Maryland is maybe more like I've heard about the go-go scene and about the more hardcore scene, but how was heavy metal a part of it from young age, or
100%? Yeah. I mean, so Maryland and DC and Virginia have such a rich history of music, especially around the 80s and 90s. It was really pumping. I mean, there was 20 or 30 different nightclubs you could go to, maybe 50 nightclubs in the area. I mean, just from all sizes, from 100 cap to, an arena with 2 different arenas, really. And I kind of got into music at about 10 years old. I really started to kind of discover stuff for myself. And right around 13 or 14, my dad had always kind of reminded me, hey, this guy that worked at my seafood store who used to babysit you, he's got this band, and I see their name in the paper all the time. And I see he goes, I think you would like it. So I checked out Transnational and then got into Self-Titled, and I was hooked from probably 14, and I saw him for the first time at about 15. And yeah, I mean, it was just a pretty natural progression, but heavy metal was really huge in Maryland. In fact, Heavy Metal Parking Lot is filmed in Maryland in PG County in Landover at the the Capitol Center. So it's in the parking lot of the place that we would go see basketball and hockey games and concerts.
Cool. That was 86 on the Turbo tour. I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think also too, there's this really weird history of, you know, the Bad Brains are from Prince George's County, Maryland, DC. Wino, obviously, you know, The Obsessed and Spirit Caravan and Hidden Hand and all these things that Wino was involved in are from Maryland. Clutch is from Maryland. You know, you really do have this pretty crazy history of hardcore punk, heavy metal. You know, Pentagram is from Maryland. So, you know, there really is a rich history here. And I think as a teenager, kind of when you first start getting into music, so we had a couple different places. One place was called Kent Mill Music. We had Tower Records. We had The Wiz. I mean, we must have had 15 or 20 different record stores all over the area. And, you know, I don't know, it can't be much different for Europe. I mean, I know in England, it's not much different. You go into the record store and every month the kind of posters on the wall change to what the new big releases were. So you'd look up, and I remember, you know, one of my first memories is seeing that Prong record with the eyeball and the fork.
Yeah.
And being just horrified, just being like, what is that? Or the Pantera Vulgar Display of Power, or Far Beyond Driven with the drill and the skull and the punching, you know. So you see these big kind of tangible pieces of art on the wall, and it immediately attracts you. You say, what is that? And I'll never forget seeing Iron Maiden in one of the shops and just instantly identifying and being like, I don't know what that sounds like, but the art is so cool that I can't help. I already like it before I've heard it. And there's a few things like that, right? There's Dark Side of the Moon. There's Sticky Fingers. There's Paranoid. I'm trying to think.
Master of Puppets is a
Master of Puppets,
very,
Ride the
visual.
Lightning.
Yeah.
You have these record covers. I mean, even Thin Lizzy's, like, I'm trying to think. They're self-titled, or
Jailbreak is pretty cool. But
Jailbreak. Yeah, exactly.
The cartoon cover.
Exactly. So you have these record covers that are like, I mean, honestly, even Abbey Road or the Bad Brains Rock for Light, right? With the cap, it's yellow with the Rasta colors and a lightning bolt striking the Capitol. To me, that's the first thing that draws me to at this point in my life when I'm buying records in the store. That's what it's attracting me to the record. So I do remember very much seeing in two different stores. So, but also it wasn't just for new releases. It was kind of like Kent Mill Music also had like the hip, young, cool, maybe he's a kind of an asshole too, like the snobby record store clerk, the guy who just had up his favorite stuff in the store. And I guess I'll never forget Screaming for Vengeance and the Trooper. I mean, just those posters in particular, just they're in my mind forever, you know? Or I mean, anything really too at that time that was formative, like Clutch's self-titled is so strange, or Elephant Rider is just like, what is that? And then I think it was the same for my love for hip hop too, like with Biggie Smalls, like Ready to Die. It's just it's a child. It's him as a baby on a stark white cover, and it just says Ready to Die, which is so, I don't even think people realize how heavy metal that actually is. You know what I mean? How that's dark. That's really dark. So I've always been attracted to album art, and that's where it all started for me, specifically with Iron Maiden and Priest, for sure.
Cool. So we have this question now. If you have to choose one of those bands, just from like the whole impression and all your memories as a kid and a young guy, and all the hours of, I don't know, drinking beer and listening to those bands. If you had to choose one, which one would that be? With your heart, and you get to choose with your more analytical mind, and later on maybe.
I'll say this: my heart and my mind say two different things.
Yeah.
This is really tough for me because both bands they share so much in common, especially vocally, especially the way the band plays. I think I would have to say Judas Priest, because I think there's a more, I mean, we'll get into the singing and stuff later, but there's a much more punk rock looseness to it, right? There's a much more like from the gut, like this shit's about being bad and drinking beer and fighting people and wearing leather, and on its nose, it's much more fun. Yeah. It's much more aggressive, and it's much more in your face. That's what my heart says. But my brain, and as you get older, you start to realize that you got to use more of your brain than your heart in making decisions for survival purposes. And I realized that Iron Maiden it's like Queen. It's so operatic, and it's so theatrical, and it's so much more thought out. Every little piece is like symphonic, including the stage presentation. So I think in terms of like what initially attracted me to either band, I would have to say Judas Priest was super cool. Also, you know, they were a band that was on Beavis and Butthead, and Beavis and Butthead were singing Breaking the Law, and it became like it became one of the first memes of its time, right? That was a thing. But then as you kind of look, as you step back and you start analyzing the different pieces of it, business wise, show presentation, and subject matter. Now, it's seemingly Iron Maiden was much more socio-political very much earlier on in their career, you know what I mean? And they both kind of took on these really interesting facets, with Rob Halford coming out of the closet and kind of disproving the idea that homosexuality equals feminine qualities, right? Because you had the toughest, most badass dude in the world, and it's funny how blind people kind of were to the leather chaps aesthetic, because it's like that is a very now we kind of understand that the whole time he was like, hey, I'm a gay dude and I'm tough, and I'll fuck you up, like I'm hardcore. And then you look at the way Iron Maiden presented their whole thing, and you can kind of see how Iron Maiden took it artistically to another level, a level that I don't know that Judas Priest could be at. You know what I mean? It just that's
a really good point, because business wise, Iron Maiden has always been better, and I think maybe fewer persons have more control in the Iron Maiden organization. And referring to what you talked about a little earlier, there's more like a singular vision, maybe in the Iron Maiden stuff, that makes it easier for more people to connect with it.
100%. And you can kind of see that. You can kind of see that Iron Maiden had, I mean, it seems like Bruce Dickinson has a very singular vision for what it is. And Iron Maiden feels more like a team, it's this one uniform thing. Whereas when I think of Judas Priest, I think of Rob Halford. I mean, I know KK, you know, I understand the musical prowess in both bands, but I think it's kind of like watching a solo performer with Judas Priest, and when you watch Iron Maiden, it's really like a symphony. Just it's so it's hard. I mean, it's hard to articulate, really. I understand the beauty of this show now, because how do you choose? But if you had to choose one, I would say, up until a few years ago, I probably would have for sure said Judas Priest. And then as I get older, I would definitely say, wow, Iron Maiden, there's so few things like that in the world. I mean, they're the only one left. In fact, they were the only ones ever maybe to put on a show like that. I mean, you have Kiss, but it's so silly.
Yeah, that's true.
Not for me.
Did you read the Rob Halford's biography?
I didn't.
Oh, I really recommend it, because he's really personal, and all the stuff that you wonder about Rob Halford, he tells, and more. So I'm a huge fan of Rob Halford but I think I became an even bigger fan after I read the book. Won't you agree, Boch?
Yes, definitely. And let me also tell you, Nate, that it's very normal to be a bit torn in this question. So don't beat yourself up about this. We are ourselves at least, but it was interesting to hear your perspective on it, and life will go on after this show.
I hope so.
and it is perfectly all right to still enjoy both bands. So just
we do all the time.
Wanted to let you know.
Cool. Yeah. So we've come to the part with the top 3 songs and favorite album. I know that people say it's really, really hard to pick your top 3 songs from any band, really. So did you give it some thought, Nate?
Yeah, I did. I did very much. Sorry, I'm pulling up. I took some notes, so I'm just pulling them up real quick.
So what band are we going for first?
Yeah, you tell me.
Let's do Iron Maiden first.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, Iron Maiden, the pivotal record for me is Peace of Mind. And I'm sure it's controversial to say that, I'm not including Run for the Hills in my top 3, but for me, it's 3 songs off that record that really brought me into the band. So I'm just kind of going with more of that album, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where Eagles Dare kind of puts you into the entire vibe of what the band is. It sounds like a galloping horse. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it, but it has that feel. Of course, The Trooper. I think to me, that's their most, I feel like that's the most quintessential song. I don't know if that's fair. One
of them, at least.
Yeah. I mean, if someone was going to ask about that band, if someone's going to ask about Iron Maiden, I would say, listen to The Trooper. Yeah. I mean, I think that's
you'll get everything.
You'll get it all, right?
Yeah.
You get a bit of the operatic vocals, you get a bit of the cinema, you get a bit of the guitar harmonies,
the galloping beats,
the galloping, and then Flight of Icarus off the same record is to me just, I don't know. That's
brilliant song.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So
is that we're keeping records. So at number 3 was Where Eagles Dare, and then number 2 and number 1, you got Flight of Icarus as number 1, or the other way around?
Sorry, The Trooper's number 1 and Flight of Icarus is number 2.
Okay.
And I would say those are my top 3, and I think that record in general is untouchable.
Yeah, it's really good. And
I just wanted to discuss one point there, because not too long ago I kind of realized that The Trooper doesn't really have a chorus.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting, because what the hell, man? Doesn't every song need a chorus?
It has. I
don't know.
Well, apparently not. But as being one of the definitely most known and popular songs, it's interesting that they can actually have a song that's that. If that's the chorus, I don't know, but
I think that's the chorus, right?
Yeah,
I think that's the chorus, and I think that's why they can play stadiums. Yeah. It's because you don't have to sing back words; you're just going whoa, you know. And I think that's actually very genius. Yeah. And I know this is a weird comparison, but I was thinking about it actually in the car today. That it's a lot like the Beatles do it quite often, where they don't have a defined chorus. It's more just like a turnaround, and something in the way when you listen to that song, there's no real chorus. It's kind of the verses, and then it's just the real chorus. The hook is when the guitar goes bum, 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 bum.
That kind of sums up the whole.
That's crazy, right? When you think about it. So for me, that's like that's the Trooper, and I think that's so. You know what? It is a chorus. It's just not. It's not a traditional chorus, and maybe they're one of the first bands to kind of do that. You know, they realized that stadiums was destiny. So
at least what I thought. You know, when the song was written or recorded, even that someone have maybe thought that shouldn't there be any words or something like that, but really a kind of a bold thing to do and just keep it the way it is, and then history have proven it was probably the right thing to do.
But how about Quest for Fire?
I mean, here's my problem with this entire podcast is that there's nothing, even off their last record, the newest one, there's nothing where you're going to say, how about this one? And everyone's going to go, oh, that's terrible. It's all good. They have at least a few good songs off of each record, which is so rare. You know, there's bands that went through 10, 20 year periods where they didn't have a good, I mean, arguably, I mean, we can get into this, but arguably Metallica is one of those bands where like since maybe the Black Album, they haven't really put out a record where you're like, that's a great record, you know, that's amazing. Or there's 10 or there's 10 songs on the record and 4 of them are just incredible. Just for me as a fan, that just hasn't happened.
Because so we have some we have some guys who are big fans of Peace of Mind, but then not Quest of Fire. Maybe just because of why are the dinosaurs there?
Why not?
Well, why not? That's a good
you know,
point.
you say why, I say why. Bruce Dickinson says why not? I mean, also why fly your own plane around? Why not?
Yeah, why not? Why? Sure. Also, I used to play in our Maiden cover band.
Oh wow, okay.
And I also I play in like regularly in a heavy metal cover band, and I really love playing Flight of Icarus. It's so fun to play, and people react immediately by jumping up and down, every single person in the room, every time we start with Flight of Icarus. But then when Eagles Stare, as a bass player, it's pretty boring to play because okay, are we done with this part yet? No, we're not done with this in a while. So playing was, but I like the song. But
I mean, for me, actually, that song to me kind of shows you that they don't have to be so over the top with everything, and it can be very basic. It almost feels like a Thin Lizzy song, you know, in that weird way. So, yeah, those are my 3, man. I stick by them. I think that record is untouchable.
And you even included the only real drum intro of Iron Maiden.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how you leave Nico out of the discussion, you know, like he's from another planet. I mean, that's just like he's the first example really of, I mean, to me, him and Neil Peart are the only 2 guys that are doing what they do at the time. I mean, maybe Neil Peart is more technical, but not much more, right? I mean, I don't know.
But but it's also it's a great way to introduce yourself as a new drummer. Just come in and do the fill, and that'll be your and staying your signature for all those years. And Scott Travis did the same when he came into Judas Priest with the Painkiller intro.
And that's also on my that's also on my list. Sorry, I love drums. I do love drums. I do love the drums. I'm very jealous that I was not a drummer. If I have one regret with music, it's learning how to play the drums, because drums, that's the first instrument, right? I mean, that's like the oldest instrument aside from the human voice. It's drums.
Yeah.
So something very primal about when you hear it.
Like I can tell you now, Nate, that Bo here is an accomplished drummer, but also a bass player and guitarist, and he sings pretty good as well.
Cool.
So yeah, you should check out his band. It's called Magic Touch with Magic with a CK at the end of Magic. So I think,
Cool.
I think is this your second album that has the sticker with for fans of early Dokken.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah,
that's
the
cool.
third one.
Yeah.
That's the third one. That was
just to put on a sticker for fans of early Dokken.
I have no problem with Don Dokken. I'm a Dokken. I like Dokken.
Well, coming back to the heavy metal parking lot and everything. But thanks for the shout out, Tara. And
sure.
You should enjoy it. But what I was thinking about is mentioning Nico. Now he's well into his 60s. So if you start learning drums now, Nate, you still have a lot of years ahead as a drummer. Still.
Yeah, I mean, if I start now in 30 years, I'll be not anywhere near as good as he is, and I'll be at his age. So it seems like a futile.
All right,
seems a bit futile.
I was just trying to keep the positive tone.
PMA, I like that. Look, I'm not going to not try it, but it's,
Yeah.
And I also feel like without Nico, you don't have guys like Braun from Mastodon, that doesn't exist. Without Nico, there is no him.
Yeah.
So, and he's like my favorite metal drummer now,
Cool.
Yeah, there definitely are some similarities there to how they approach their style. Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. But let's move on to the Priest top 3, please.
Okay. So you've got another thing coming. I think is my ultimate. That's my number 1. I think that's the juiciest. And I think this is what separates these two guys as singers, is that they're both rock singers and metal singers, metal vocalists. And then what Rob Halford does that Bruce Dickinson doesn't do, especially in this song, is a perfect example. It's almost like R&B vocals. It's it's got a swing to it. It's bluesier. It's more funky without being funky. It's got a real blues thing to it. And you don't really get that from Bruce. Now, what Bruce does is totally different, and it's more theatric and operatic, which Halford also does. But vocally speaking, this is my shit. You've got another thing coming is so, I mean, it's almost like Otis Redding singing heavy metal, it's that real, it's really in between the notes and the measures swing, and it's lazy and awesome. And I'm way into it. And it almost sounds like the kind of the first punk rock singing a little bit, it's like in that vein. Number 2 is Painkiller. Also because of the drum intro and because of the controversy surrounding the song. In the United States, it was a huge at that time, censorship was a huge deal. They were fighting to kind of censor certain records. Al Gore and his wife Tipper Gore were the reason that they have those parental advisory stickers on albums. And they really tried really hard in Congress to shut it down. And, I think the band got sued over a suicide over that song.
That was actually another song. I think that actually was the Spooky Tooth cover on Stained Class.
Oh wow! Okay,
so it doesn't make any sense. But it was.
Yeah, it's not even their song. No. But I do remember they were referencing Painkiller in some of the congressional stuff, I believe, in terms of like people being encouraged to kill themselves and just lunacy. Yeah. But I do love that song. And I think it kind of, there's once Rob Halford's personal story, it's kind of a more layered and more deeply personal thing. And I don't think you get a lot of that with Iron Maiden. No. I don't think you get a lot of deeply personal stuff. I think you get storytelling where I think a lot of Judas Priest is autobiographical. It's from Rob's perspective. So Painkiller is really, that's one that I love. I love the drums on it. I love the guitar, and the vocals are just, I don't know how to describe them, but
it's great. It's a great song.
It cuts through.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I'm going to be real cliche here, but I think there's a reason it's a hit for them is Living After Midnight. I think it's a party anthem. And I think as a musician for my whole life, I can kind of relate to the lyrics more than I can relate to a historical invasion of a country.
Yeah,
I can relate more to living after midnight.
yeah.
You know, and I think that's why that song's so popular, I think.
You know what? One thing that one thing that really gets me from You Got Another Thing Coming is the out breath just before the breakdown. It's like,
it's crazy.
Yeah. I'm just letting off steam, and now we're going to take it down a notch. And like that, just as out breath, it has so much character. It kind of chills down my back just from that out breath. So
it's really interesting.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, I don't know, you can look at the song from a bunch of different perspectives. I just think that Priest kind of does this thing where it's really hard. It's so universal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not trying to. The lyrics aren't trying to educate you.
No.
Or tell this fantastical story or come from the perspective. And listen, I love storytelling songs. I love history. I love the fact that, you know, both a band like Thin Lizzy and a band like Iron Maiden talk about the plight of the Native American as a representative of all downtrodden people across the world. I think that's in music and in art, that's hugely important. But also sometimes you just want to drink a beer and get fucked up and talk about, you know, rocking to the dawn. And that's the dichotomy, right? That's what you, that's kind of that kind of to me sums up both bands. You know, Iron Maiden, it's more of this theatrical presentation, and you're going to leave there like, it's very heavy. A lot of it, you know, the lyrical content is very heavy. And I think Judas Priest more times than not is just, it's just rock and roll.
One of our first guests, a guy called Kim Holm, he does cover illustrations for a lot of bands. He actually told us that you should listen to side 2 of Sin After Sin by Judas Priest as a mini concept album.
Wow.
Because it's those 4 songs are connected, and you know the Raw Deal song on Sin After Sin. I don't know how familiar we are with the 70s Priest stuff, but that's where he references the Denim Dudes and the Leather Boys and Fire Island, New York. And
wow, okay, and kind of no one really picked up on it for like 20 years.
Yeah, there was that's actually in his book. There's a guy designing. He says, "Yeah, Fire Island, yeah," and then they knew that they had something in common.
So I heard this really crazy story, and I was really excited because I've not been able to really tell it, but and again, I'm hearing this story secondhand, but it very early on. Lion Eyes recorded at a studio called Sheffield Studio, north of Baltimore in Maryland. And I think at some point Priest was looking to do a record. This was it was an old school studio. I mean, huge A room, B room, C room, and a lot of 80s metal was recorded there. And the story goes that somebody working with Rob, I don't know if it was the manager at the time, somebody working for Rob, with Rob and with Priest, they were in a relationship together, but it was still very undercover at this time. Maybe it was the very, very early 80s or maybe 86, 87 mid. So this manager was calling around, and they had a huge budget, and they were either going to do a full record or they were going to do a full month-long tour rehearsal, right? And I think the budget was something insane. I mean, it was like, it was $100,000 or $200,000 or $500,000. It was a massive budget. So the studio manager, and we heard this from a guy who interned, he was in his 50s at the time, and now, But at the time, he was an intern at the studio in Baltimore. So the manager called, somebody that was working for the band called the studio and said, hey, you know, we're looking to get Judas Priest in here for this recording session. And I guess the guy who booked the studio at the time, or the owner of the studio, was like, made some really shitty joke about hearing that Rob was gay, or rumors about him being gay, in a very derogatory way. And he said it to the guy who Rob was either intimately involved with or very, very close to, who knew, and they lost the contract from it. You know, he was like, well, we're not working, you know, then, you know, he went nuts on the guy, and he was just like, you can't talk about people like that. And they lost the contract from it. So I am going to check out the biography now, because I'm imagining there's a lot of stories like that in there.
It's really good. Wow. So moving on, Nate. So I was thinking if how I could describe you as a singer. So I've been listening to I've been listening to Lionize for many years, and I've seen you live, and also your solo stuff. And what I'm hearing is like it's the soulful rock singer. That's what I would call you. And if I'm thinking about soulful rock singers, there are two that comes to mind, and they've both been in the same British band. And I'm thinking, well, you don't sound anything like them in particular, but I'm thinking Dave Coverdale and also Glenn Hughes.
I'll take either.
Yeah, I think you got that kind of soulfulness and also power in your voice, and also in Lionize there's a fair use of the Hammond organ or keys at least.
Yeah, and
also that also contributes to the more like Deep Purple, Whitesnake vibe also. So you're happy with that?
Yeah, I mean, I consider myself a soul singer. I love soul music. That's what I grew up listening to. I mean, all my favorite singers are soul singers. You know, from Otis Redding, Sam Cooke, Etta James, Van Morrison, Joe Cocker, David Coverdale. And it's funny that you say David Coverdale, because this is also, I bring this up on a lot of music podcasts, and I catch a lot of shit for it, but Deep Purple's Come Taste the Band is one of my favorite. It might be my favorite Deep Purple record, and everyone goes nuts about that. I'm just like, Tommy Bolin is so underrated and good on the guitar, and David Coverdale is just singing his ass off, and it's like that's I want to hear that soulful, funky, groovy thing, and I appreciate that. That's
cool.
You got a good ear.
That album is absolutely on my top 3 Deep Purple.
Absolutely.
Albums.
I mean, look, space trucking. I'm all about Mark. I'm all about Mark 1 and Mark 2. But dude, Come Taste the Band is love. The intro to Love Child is so crazy. It's up there with Zeppelin and Sabbath for me. You know, that riff in 7 is just, that's it for me.
Absolutely.
Cool.
But I totally agree with you, in the description, and that whole classic rock Purple. Also, you can definitely hear the Lizzie vibe also in Lionize. So I think the voice,
big
really,
Lizzie fan.
Oh yeah, me too. But I think that's a very good description of how the voice of Nate is kind of making its way in that in the Lionize music and in the classic.
I appreciate that, guys. I mean, I really think music is kind of either soulful or it's not. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't think it has to be soul music. I just think it either comes from a place of the gut or it doesn't. You know what I mean? And that's like, I think both Iron Maiden and Judas Priest are quite soulful in their approach to music making. So especially the vocals.
Yeah. Cool. So you just listed up some of your favorite singers and a lot of soul singers. So so what is it that they have in common that you can't say soul, but or you can't say soul if you want to. But
I think
what do they have in common that makes them appeal to you so much?
I think the thread is they swing. I'm attracted to music that swings. You know what I mean? Like Ginger Baker, you know, he swings. Cream swings. Zeppelin swings. Sabbath swings the hardest.
Yeah.
I love music that swings, and I think soul swings vocally. The delivery is very loose and very like this as opposed to like this, and that's I'm very, very attracted to the swing.
So we'll be hearing who has the most swing of Rob Halford and Bruce Dickinson now.
It's Halford. It's Halford.
Is Halford?
Yeah, I mean, just like you got another thing coming, like I was explaining before. It's like it's soulful. Its approach is like this, not like this. You know, it's hard to. It's just you can imagine if the guitars were pared down a little bit, you can imagine it like a soul tune. You know, you can imagine it. It's almost like this weird Motown sort of delivery. I know that's crazy, but
yeah, I'm hearing now. Actually, I never thought of it before, but I'm some da 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 with the with the
I mean that to
like
me
the ending of it.
Yeah, it's like are the vocals like da 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 da, or is it like da 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 da? Like it swings. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's to me it swings, and that's like I'm really attracted to that. You know, and I think, I mean, shit. I think a guy like Ozzy is the perfect example of like it's kind of pre-metal, but it's metal, but the vocals. Ozzy's is a soul singer. He's an R&B singer. I mean, any way you cut it, it's like, you know. And I think that's like, I think without like Otis Redding or Ovi Wright or Screamin' Jay Hawkins or Howlin' Wolf, I don't think you have what they're doing vocally.
This is very interesting, Nate, because a lot of people would claim that the farthest genre from heavy metal is soul.
Oh no, that's so crazy because it is, because the thing is, right, when you, to me, right, just when you're looking at the etymology of it all, at the roots of it, like this is what I've always said too about like America and England in terms of music, right? Like we invented, well, they kind of invented like Irish folk music, and then we kind of had African folk music, and then those two things kind of melded and became blues and jazz and soul and R&B. And without the blues aspect of it, you don't have the heavy metal. I mean, you just don't. You don't, because it came blues, then rock, then heavy metal. You know, and Sabbath and Priest and early Iron Maiden and Deep Purple, those are the bands that are kind of in that weird melding point, you know. And I think that those guys, if you ask them what they grew up listening to, I would almost guarantee that it would be a list of soul singers and blues singers. I mean, shit, Zeppelin, these guys, the Rolling Stones were just trying to emulate Muddy Waters, and then it turned into this other thing. So I think when you look at the heart of where those guys are coming from vocally, I'd be really hard pressed. There was no metal to listen to before they did it, right?
Before they invented it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So where are they coming from, right? What are they growing up in England listening to?
I know I think they called it was the Great Blues Explosion or something. There was a lot of British blues bands in the 60s and early 70s. And I think that was where like Judas Priest and Tony Iommi, they went to see those bands and learn their chops from them.
That's it. And look at Dio. Dio was in a doo-wop group.
Yeah.
He was in a pre-rock and roll vocal doo-wop.
Yeah.
So really, at the end of the day, it all comes back to blues and soul. And so I'd have to take Rob. I think Rob stuck more to that thing that I love. And I think that Dickinson goes in a more operatic, theatrical, classical sort of way.
And we have discussed this before as well, and also kind of touched upon the fact that Bruce is very often singing Steve Harris's lyrics, and often you get the feeling that there are maybe too many words to fit in the verse, for instance, while Rob, that's singing his own lyrics, can fit them to the riffs in a much more swinging kind of fashion than Bruce ever have could.
Yeah, and that's another thing that makes it soul music to me. What he's doing is very soulful, because soul music's never trying to fit too much in. It's actually stretching the words and making them elastic. And so I'm just attracted to that.
Yeah, I think also it's not just the lyrics, but it's also the vocal melodies are often Steve Harris's vocal melodies.
Yeah.
So then you'll have and back to like the singularity you're talking about earlier, when Bruce is delivering it really well, but he's delivering Steve Harris's vocal melodies and lyrics.
Right. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of like, I don't know how to, I mean, it's really fucking me up. The further we delve into this, it's just really screwing with my head, because I think about it in like a weird, like, it's like pizza or something. It's kind of like Iron Maiden is like a supreme. It's everything. And Judas Priest is just a plain slice or the pepperoni. It's like one really solid, and and it's like Supreme is great, and I want Supreme often, but I'm never going to turn down a slice of plain. You're never going to complain about it and be like, oh, this is terrible. It's like, it's great. So
yeah, cool.
Is that the first pizza reference on the show?
Yeah, I think it is.
It is.
Awesome.
It is. Cool.
Great. I could do something more Norwegian too, because I'm a big fan of herring. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I am. So like my family, this is really strange. And I discovered this the first time that I went to Norway and the first time I went to Sweden. My family immigrated to Canada and America during the Second World War. My family's Jewish, and Jews eat pickled herring quite often, and herring and cream sauce, right? But that's all very Scandinavian too.
Yeah.
So I would say that maybe Iron Maiden is herring in a pickled cream. It's in a nice cream sauce, and it's very rich and decadent, and it's very good. And you want that. You're never going to say no. It's great. But Judas Priest is pickled herring in a very subtle wine sauce with peppers, and I think that's for me. I'm never turning it down. I'm always going with that. Is that good?
Very nice reference.
Very good. We actually bring some pickled herring to the Sweden Rock Festival. So,
I love it. I love it. I could eat it all day.
Yeah, we'll have some the Norwegian liquor, the aquavit.
Very much.
It's that goes very good with the herring.
I love that. I love that, and I don't know what the very dense brown bread is. It's very
the pumpernickel,
little pumpernickel, slice of pumpernickel, a couple pieces of pickled herring on that bad boy. Ooh, that is a treat. That's soulful right there. I always have that when I go to Copenhagen, because 100%. They're really good at that stuff.
I think we have during Christmas, you have I don't know, maybe 10 different varieties of that pickled herring available, because it's like at least for Christmas, it's like an additional thing. Yeah.
Some are more tangy, some are sweeter.
Yeah. And then a lot of variations there. But one question about herring also: have you ever tried the
herring podcast?
Yeah.
I love it. Good. This is good. You thought I was going to just be some dumb fucking American. I know that, right? And I'm hitting you guys with the herring. I know what's going on.
Because, but did you ever taste the smoked and salted and dried herring?
Yeah, love it. I love it.
Is it called the kippers? Maybe.
Kippered.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Kippered is good.
Yeah, we had it a lot when I was a kid, and
I love it.
I was turned off because of all the small bones in it. I was like, well,
come on, man.
I love it now, though.
Yeah, you bite right through.
You grew up.
Yeah. I grew up. Now I love it. Now I love it.
And I really recommend it as just as a beer snack.
Yeah.
I mean, I got an opportunity to spend some time with Per Viberg from Opeth and
also a great guy. And
amazing.
It's a smaller world because we're his wife. She stayed with at the cabin at Sweden Rock for a couple of times. So, and I also met there. You remember Erin? She's
great. He's amazing. And when we were traveling together, my first solo shows in Sweden, he kind of came along with me and helped me do the tour. And
cool.
We ate a lot of herring.
That's good.
Great.
But let's just get a little bit back to Rob Halford from the herring.
Yeah, okay.
And before we wind down here, so do you have any favorite vocal performances of Rob Halford or Bruce Dickinson? So
I can't jump out. I thought about this. I mean, my top three are those are the top three that I picked for each one were really also my favorite vocal performances. And it's so tough. It's so tough to choose. I mean, it's just,
So
there's not a bad vocal performance, and that's what makes those guys, you know?
So what about the live setting? Have you seen Priest and Maiden?
Never,
either of them?
Never.
Wow.
Yeah. I've always been on tour, or it's just been an inopportune time to go check them out. But I'm hoping to change that. I know Priest is going to do another round coming up real soon, and I'm going to try to see it. I've heard live. It's just out of control. He's still so good, Rob. So
yeah. So then, then you haven't. Then you can't say which guy cuts it best live either.
We can fill in some of it, though.
Right. I mean, look. I think at the end of the day, I've heard hours on YouTube. I couldn't pick. I truly couldn't pick.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that Bruce Dickinson doesn't get winded down, and he's running all over the stage. I mean, running.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's more. He's more athletic. But Rob Halford's holding these long notes, and it's so high.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
They're both old, or not old. They're grown men.
I thought I was going to be closer to a conclusion by the end of this podcast, and now I'm just further into the division.
Yeah.
Down the hole. Yeah, so, and then remember, Halford also packs, I don't know, 10 pounds of studs and stuff like that he's carrying around.
Giant leather jackets. Sweat. Yeah. I mean,
so you need to be fit to do that as well.
But to be fair, Dickinson's probably doing 3 costume changes. So
yeah.
Who knows? He's got sometimes he has like bulletproof vests on and army gear. Yeah, who knows?
But Rob is no stranger to costume changes either.
No.
Actually, so hard to pick.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have really created the most asshole question of all time. I mean, I don't know how this is really the only way this could be worse is if you had like guys in their 60s and 70s talking about the Beatles and the Stones. I mean, that's the only way that this could possibly get worse.
Yeah. So, So, what are you saying? Are you able to give 1 point to either Rob Halford or Bruce Dickinson for? I know it's a close race, but there has to be like one little thing that would tell you that, well, at the end of the day, by the slightest of margins,
Halford.
Yeah. Okay, I'll write it down.
Is that crazy? What have most people been voting?
Pretty close, I think.
Close race. It's pretty close race, and I guess for we've had, you're the second singer we've had on for the vocal. The other one is she's called Karin Park. She's electronic, but she also liked Halford the best. But a lot of people also like Iron Maiden the best.
What about Olav? Sag.
Yeah, but he was judging the stage presence.
Yeah, so I think that's my conclusion, is that if you're talking about singers, I would like to hear Rob Halford. If you're talking about going to see the band live, it would clearly be Iron Maiden would be the band you have to see live, right?
But kind of backing up your vote, Nate, with your top 3 Priest songs, it really shows the diversity and the range that Rob Halford has, because he's all up there with the Painkiller song and really aggressive and all that, and then again he has the swagger and the soul with the other songs.
Living After Midnight is just like, he doesn't even have to push. He's just like, I'm wearing leather and I'm gonna bang you and I'm gonna leave and you're never gonna see me again. Yeah. I don't know. That's pretty cool.
But also a thing with the Rob's vocal is that sometimes it's not that hard to sing along. Breaking the Law, it's not a hard song to sing.
Right.
But most Iron Maiden songs are much harder to sing than Breaking the Law. But if you go to Painkiller, that's a really hard song to sing.
I agree.
So he also has those. I in the cover band, I do Breaking the Law, Metal Gods, Living After Midnight occasionally, and
of course
I'm not a great singer, but I'm able to do it without shaming myself or Rob Halford.
I'm excited to hear it one day.
Yeah, I could send you some YouTube clips, but I'm not sure.
Please do. Yeah, do it.
I'll do it. So
I actually have a podcast. It's who has a better Iron Maiden cover band and Judas Priest cover band singer, and I'm gonna have you guys on, and you can tell me.
Yeah, very funny. Yeah,
we'll come. Well, Nate, this has been a pleasure.
I love this, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and especially seeing you again after all these years. And
it's beautiful, man. And I'll be your neck of the woods pretty soon.
Yeah, and I'm hoping you're coming to Bergen. Then if you come to Bergen, me and Bo will be showing you all kinds of hospitality. We live pretty close to all the venues, and
I have a great friend who lives in the UK now, but she works for Orange Amplifiers, and her name's Ella Stomark, and she's from Bergen. Okay. So I've always asked her to, when I'm over there, to give me a tour, and if she can't, I'm going to put it on you guys to show me around. And I want herring.
You're gonna get a lot herring all day. All right. So again, thank you so much, and thank you for some really good perspectives on and a lot of things that you summed up with Judas Priest and Iron Maiden in the start of the podcast. Those are things that I've really not articulated for myself in my head, but when you described it, so yes, this makes really sense, but it also makes it more difficult to see which one is best, because they're both good, but they're good at different stuff. And the stuff that Iron Maiden are good at has, I think they're about 10 times bigger in album sales or something than Judas Priest.
Sure.
So they really hit a good place to focus, to connect with a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And good. I think we could talk again in another 6 months, and maybe my perspective's changed.
Yeah, I'd love that.
I hope to see you guys
really
soon.
Nice talking to you, Nate. And
pleasure was mine.
Meeting. So hopefully we'll we'll meet again somewhere, and especially if you come to
In
these
Bergen,
parts
yes.
of the world.
Then I'll,
and I'm gonna go
very
check out
cool.
Magic Touch right now. I'm gonna walk my dog and listen to Magic Touch.
Yeah.
So.
yeah, that's
Cool.
cool. And maybe you said you'll be coming to Europe. Is it something you
We're
can talk
working-
about, or
We're working on it right now.
Okay.
We're working on it right now. But in the meantime, you can go check out, Nate Bergman Sings and thanks for ordering the record again. I really appreciate it. And I will definitely see you sooner than later.
Yeah, cool. All right, bye
Very
bye.
cool.
Take care.
All right, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.